Hello, is there anybody there? Oh, Lorraine was there, she's scared off. Lorraine, can you switch your video on, dear? Thank you.
Is it on?
Yep, it is.
Oh, hiya.
Hi. A nice hot day.
Oh, don't. I hate it. Well, I shouldn't say I hate it. That's not true. But I've had enough.
You've had enough. Have you been teaching today?
Oh my God. Yes, I have. I wish I hadn't. Everybody was out to kill me today. I don't know why. One of those days. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it would seem
how they feel, Lorraine, if it's any consolation.
That's honestly just everybody. I've stopped in the middle of Exeter Street roundabout today. The kid just slammed the brakes on, and I could just had to see all these cars coming towards me. My life flashed before me. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's not good on, is it? Because you haven't got a gas pedal to get you out of there.
I know, and that's what she said. Oh, well, oops, sorry, I hit the wrong pedal. I'm like, oh my God. There we go. Never mind. Never mind.
Oh, we're there. Sorry, it's all gone blank. Hello.
You push the off button on the screen. That's why.
Oh, hi, we're back again.
Okay.
Well, it's very hot in here, dear.
I know, it's hot in here. I've got a fan on. I've got this fan as well.
Oh, I don't blame you.
Which is helpful.
Anyway, I think some people are going to be popping in. I don't know how many people are going to come to tonight because it is a hot night. But we can start with your questions, Lorraine. It's an open session to discuss anything to do with standards check or part 3.
Are you recording this or not?
Yes, it has been recorded.
I haven't got any specific questions. You know, I just live in complete and utter fear and dread. And there's mere mention of the word standards check sends me into a flat spin, but that's just me.
I still can't persuade you to think about becoming a training associate with us.
No, I don't want to work that hard.
No, not a branded one, but we've opened up a subscription to become, because we've got a lot of people who want to do top-up training, but don't want to be part of, like a franchise or a branded arrangement. We have you can discuss this anyway with Lorraine. We have a training association subscription, which means that you can come.
Lorraine knows about that.
That's what I did before, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. You know all about it.
Yeah, that was what I did before, wasn't it?
Yeah. Cass has just got in from a lesson. No, well, had a lesson earlier, didn't we?
You know Cass, don't you, Lorraine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi.
You should have seen each other colliding on the roundabouts today, I suspect.
You're bombing up and down the dual carriageway.
You can see I'm having a hot flush. It's not my age, it's because the heating's bloody awful here. Okay, carry on.
So this is being recorded so people can look back on it.
Yes. So we're going to keep this serious.
Okay. So we may have some more people popping in, but if not, we'll work with you two. So that's great. Quality, not quantity, as they say. So really the purpose of today is to talk about anything related to part 3s or standards checks. So I know for you, Lorraine, the fear is the standards check, and for you, Cass, is the other one, the part 3. So do you have any specific issues that you'd like to discuss about either of those? I mean, we're really talking about the same beast, aren't we? Cass, have you got anything in particular that you're worried about your part 3?
Not overly. I think my main concern at the moment is my time management. So I am overrunning most of my lessons at the minute. So it's just trying to get back in time to then be able to have the debrief at the end without going over.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it really is important to have that short, even though it's sharp. But if you don't sort of go round the cycle. And if you think about it in terms of what they're actually marking on, yes, the lesson is important, but if you completely ignore the fact that you don't debrief, then you're automatically giving away points in teaching and learning, because it's all about, have you actually had that kind of discussion? And if hopefully you will have had those discussions when you have stops to unpack things. But the end debrief is equally important to make sure that you hear from the student what they felt they've learned from it.
I think, welcome, Rachel. We're just talking about, in part 3 in standards checks, the importance of timekeeping, getting back on time. So, I mean, my strategy would always be get back to within spitting distance of the test centre 5 minutes before you actually need to go into the test centre car park. So that then, okay, you've got 5 minutes to play with. Well, because of the location of, it's certainly in Salisbury, the test centre car park, you can easily find some circuits and bumps to go round. I wouldn't probably pull up and stop necessarily at that point, because you're going to be pulling up and stopping and unpacking at the end of the lesson. But you can do it, you know, another couple of loops around, just to, a bit like I always think of it as an aeroplane circling the runway. When they're getting ready to land, they circle round until they get their landing slot. And I sort of feel it's a bit like that. If you're doing a part 3 or standards check where your training area will take you quite a long way away from the test centre, which is fine. And in your planning and preparation, you should know how long that'll take you in every different situation, depending on traffic, etc. You want to get the furthest bit away done first, early on, so that then you get back closer to the test centre. So, for example, if you were going to go out sort of Peter's Finger way, and you all know that, I think, do you know that, Lorraine? Yeah. So you're going to head out towards sort of big Tesco's and McDonald's, and then you're going to think about doing some nitty gritty meeting traffic, perhaps up Godolphin Way, around there. So I'd always get out to the furthest area away from the test centre early on, so that then you start working back closer to the test centre. So if you left your furthest away bit to the end of the lesson, if something came along and held you up, then you're going to be a bit snookered. Whereas if you do it at the beginning and you're held up, it doesn't really matter, because you'll still have time to get back to the test centre, if that makes sense. Yeah, so always aimed, and the thing is to do is, as well, to practice it in your lessons, aim to get back to your student's drop-off place 5 minutes before you need to. And I don't mean 5 minutes including the debrief, because you need that 5 minutes for the debrief at the end. So i.e. 10 minutes before the actual cut-off of the lesson time. So you've got 5 minutes leeway, so you can do a few circuits and bumps, and you know, you're bound to be able to find something meaningful nearer to the drop-off point. And then you can literally get to your drop-off point bang on 5 or 4 or 3 minutes before the end of the lesson, however long you want to unpack with that student. But that's really important. I remember when I was doing my part 3 years ago, they kept banging on about, you've got to get back, you've got to get back. Now, it was quite hard in those days, because quite often you had you did have an examiner who was role playing the student. And for example, for me, I took my part 3 in Hull. I didn't know Hull at all. So, you know, that was quite tricky. But you've got the advantage of knowing your area really well. And that's why there's another reason why you absolutely must know every nook and cranny of your training areas. And you've also got a student that they're not going to throw you they will throw you curveballs. I know, we know that, but they're not an examiner role playing a student. So they're not going to do anything outrageous, you hope. Does that help, Cass? I mean, I think the thing is, keep your eye on the clock all the way through and have a plan in your head. You know, my first part of the lesson is going to take me to there. Our second part's probably going to take me to there. But of course, it's all subject to change, isn't it?
Yeah, it does help. Is there any leeway? So if you were to run over, is there like a bit of give in the timings, or not really?
Yes, there is a bit of give, particularly if the examiner can see that, you know, it's sort of beyond your control, that there's been a really bad traffic jam where there wouldn't normally be a traffic jam. If you're coming back via an area where there's always a traffic jam, they'll expect you to factor that in. Okay, so that, and they will know, because they know the area really well, Lorraine.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Cass, on my part 3, I remember I was starting to head back anyway, but he then actually said, oh, I think we should start heading back now. And I thought, oh, Christ, he's seen enough, I'm in trouble here. But actually, it was okay. He was just being kind and helping me out, saying, you know, start heading back. So I think they do, like Sarah said, they know the area, and they will help you out if they can, you know, tell you when to start heading back. I was surprised that he did that, to be honest.
I wouldn't rely on that though.
The flip side.
No,
of that-
no, but I was surprised that he did say that, to be fair.
Yes, yes.
But no, I wouldn't rely on it. I wasn't expecting him to do that. I was heading back anyway, but
Yeah.
Rachel, you had a question.
Have you ever known anyone fail their part 3 for getting back too late?
I haven't. I have had somebody had a ticking off once because of it. We were out, and this is a classic. We were out bottom of Snakey, Woodford Valley, down that way, and we were due to come back. We were gonna come back up Snakey, I think, or no, we were going to come back Stratford Subcastle, but that road was shut, so we had to go up Snakey. We were on our way back, and it was straight through Stratford Subcastle, Castle Roundabout, St Mark's home. But that road to Stratford was shut, so we had to turn right up Snakey. So I'm in the back thinking, oh wow, now we've got to get a wriggle on, because he timed it really well to get back, but the road was shut and we had no prior knowledge of it because we'd done our homework, because it was the time when there was quite a lot of road closures. So we'd done our homework the night before, but it wasn't marked. So there we get there and it's blooming well shut. So the issue was that when we got to the top of Snakey and he was coming along, he didn't really get the lad moving very much. He was dawdling a bit. Now, I think if it had been me, I'd have been thinking, right, I'm under pressure here for time. It's a good opportunity now to use that to make sure your student makes good progress, and the student wasn't, and it wasn't addressed. So he did lose marks for that because he didn't address the issue. Plus, I can tell you that if the examiner's got another test straight after yours, he's got very little wriggle room at all.
I think you have to be, one thing I did on my last test is I had an incident, and because I was so pressured in my head about getting back to the test centre, I didn't stop to unpack the use of dual controls. It was at the BMW roundabout. I had to stop a student going onto the roundabout. And because I was so obsessed with getting back to the test centre on time, I ignored the need to pull over and stop and debrief it. And I headed back to the test centre, but I'd already given myself about 5+ minutes leeway. So don't let yourself get panicked by time. If something like, you have to dual control or you have to exercise, in other words, if an event needs unpacking and you've got that time, do the unpacking. Don't ignore it, because what I did was I shot off from the roundabout, went straight back to the test centre, had about 10 minutes or
Which you did circuits and bumps there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did circuits and bumps, and I sort of verbally unpacked what had happened, but it wasn't adequate. I waited until the actual debrief to start that unpack, and it was wrong. What I should have done is dealt with the incident there and then gone back to the centre and not done bumps and circuits.
Because you had time on your hands.
Because I had time. So don't let time panic you.
Because it was one of your things, wasn't it? Time management was an
the
issue for you.
Time management, I mean, to the extent that I had a stop clock in the car and, one of those cooking clocks that counted down, which was all well and good, but it actually didn't help me to manage the time properly because I was too panicked about time. So you need to keep a grip on it, and you need not to lose control of time, Cass, just to come back to your point. But also treat the lesson properly. So if something is happening right at the end of your lesson, that like a safety critical event, deal with it, and then go back to the test centre. I regret that I haven't dealt with it there and then, because then I was in a mess when I got back to doing the test centre bit, because I thought, I've not unpacked a safety critical event.
But you had time to unpack it. That's the point. You came back to Manor Road and you had 10 minutes to spare.
Yeah.
And you went round and round the loop. And instead of going round and round the loop reasonably aimlessly, as he said, you should have pulled up on
Bishop and the examiner was quite firm. He said you should have pulled up on Bishop Down. You should have unpacked it instead of doing aimless bumps and loops. So there was a good message there about time management. Don't let time panic you into doing something that you shouldn't be doing. Because I just went hell for leather, didn't I?
Yeah, Lorraine, did you have a question, Lorraine?
No, you've answered it. I didn't. You said that you unpacked when you got back. Yeah, I was just going to say, did you actually unpack it, and was that? Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, you unpacked it. Yeah. So if something happens and it's towards the end of the lesson and you are on your way back to the test centre, there's nothing. Be normal. There's nothing wrong with saying, look, you know, we need to unpack that. We're on our way back to the test centre. We're going to unpack it when we get back to the test centre. Okay.
Which is what I said, isn't it?
Which is perfectly fine. Jack said that, but then did aimless loops. So that was why it was a problem. But Rachel, going back to your question, so if you're back bang on time at the end of the lesson into the test centre car park, and you think, oh my God, he said finish by 20 past and it's 20 past, do not finish the lesson without unpacking. Go over by a couple of minutes to make sure that you get that discussion at the end of the lesson, because that's where you get a lot of your learning outcomes consolidated by discussion. You know, do you remember we did this? How did you feel about that? Oh yeah, I felt I got better at that. Or if you've done some scaling, those are the times that you pull it all together and have that discussion about, you know, this is what we did and this is what we learned. And Cass gave a really great example of that today in her lesson. At the end of the lesson, even though we were a bit late, she said, right, tell me your top 3, what have you got out of today? And that's a fantastic approach, because it really sort of drills down into them having to give you things that they've learned.
And it's really important, if time is tight, actually having a shortcut way of debriefing in their words is really useful, isn't it?
Yeah.
So practice, you know, come up with, I mean, Cass, you've got your shortcut way, is what your top 3 takeaways is what I used to say. You've got your way of doing it. It's really important, because if you are under pressure for time, at least you don't skip the debrief.
I mean, they're not daft. They're going to know you're either going to be slightly early or slightly late. It would be a bit of luck to get in bang on if you want to debrief for 4 minutes, to debrief bang on 4 minutes. But, you know, you should be getting close to that with practice, you know, by using the area to your best advantage. But, you know, I did know of a PDI years ago when the new standards check came out, and he said, I got in and he said, I didn't unpack at the end of the lesson because I was panicking about the time. And I think I can't remember, it was ages ago, but he got severely marked down, because the whole of the lesson, that's your culmination of the whole of the lesson. That's like taking ages to bake a lovely cake, but you don't bother to take it out of the oven. Do you know what I mean? It's the big bit at the end, isn't it? It's the big reveal.
And if you look on the SC1, it's got, you're giving away easy marks.
Yeah.
I mean, these are easy marks to do a good debrief, because you'll have done the hard yards, you know, delivering the lesson. But giving away, and I'm just trying to look, is at the end of the session, was the pupil encouraged to review their own performance? Well, if you don't do a debrief, they'll give you a 0. And that's harsh, but I've seen that score. And it's also a bit connects to, it can impact 2 or 3 marks in there, particularly around, you know, did you give feedback to the students? So if you're not giving them an opportunity to review and reflect on their performance, particularly at the end, then
and may I say, it links back to the very important goal setting at the beginning, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it's finishing the circle, it's joining up the lines at the end of that circle. So yes, in a short answer, if you're going to be a few minutes late, don't let it cost you by not debriefing at the end of it. Overrun by a couple of minutes, that's fine. But plan your lesson. Plan. You know, Lorraine was in heavy traffic in the town, weren't you? I think, and I think because you've done quite a few circuits and loops around and wiggled about, and which was fantastic, because it was really challenging for the student. I think it was Lee. He might have worried that you were going to do another little couple of loops.
I think he was, because I came up to Brown Street from round the back, and I think he thought I was going to go straight on and go down Brown Street, but I was planned to go left back to test centre, so I think he just said it to say, oh, don't go round again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, they don't want you to come unstuck, especially, you know, if you've delivered what seems to be a good lesson. The last thing they want you to do is screw it up at the last minute.
I mean, that's a good point. Is, are we all very clear about what a successful lesson looks like? I mean, it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because we've got the SC1 is a big marking sheet. It's quite significantly, the competencies are significantly broken down. But I often think that the most successful indicator for a part 3 is the way that you actually interact and communicate with your student. If you're on it with your student and you're communicating, that rapport's there, and you're checking out and you're really upfront and involved, engaged with the student, I think that's a massive indicator, isn't it?
Yeah, and that in turn, if you're doing that, you're going to be responding to what your student says. You know, and that's huge, because if the student's saying things and you're not responding in the correct way, or you're not responding at all, that's not good. So, you know, if your student's muttering away, and I had a PDI recently whose student was very nervous and very lacking in confidence, and this student really needed a lot of verbal cuddling, if you can get what I mean. You know, well, come on, let's do this together. How do you feel about that? And a lot of praise when the student did something right. Now, if the instructor's sitting there passive and the student says, oh, I think I did that all right, when they've done it all right, my God, you need to celebrate it, because, you know, that's going to lift their confidence and consolidate that what they did there was right. You know, so it's like the child, when they do something right, when the dog sits, you pat them on the head and give them a biscuit, because you've got to give praise when something has gone well, especially for somebody that's struggling to make those things go well.
Yeah, it's that, I mean, it is that the way that you're communicating and engaging with them that is a key indicator of whether or not you're on top of the lesson, whether or not you're actively working with the student on the subject or theme that you know is subject of your goal setting. Because if you're not actually spotting the issues, you're not actually engaged with the student, that is when it unravels very quickly, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I just wanted to ask if anybody's got any other questions, but I was going to talk about something else. But has anyone got anything else they want to, an area of the part 3 they want to talk about? Rach, have you got anything?
Yeah, it's wandering off the subject a bit. It's on your part 3, when you have your chat with the examiner, do they still look at your evidence?
Good question. Well, the word on the street is that they may not. I asked an examiner the other day in Winchester, because they didn't look at part 2 evidence for a PDI. And I asked the examiner, are they looking at part 3s? And the examiner said, well, no, not really, but, you know, they might. So, I mean, I think, this is my own personal opinion, and you all know Lee, I think Lee might want to have a look at it, but they're certainly not obliged to, and I think a lot of them wouldn't. That having been said, we will continue to bring our evidence and our training records to our exams. As dry parters, we would do that anyway, wouldn't we?
I think it's, I mean, first of all, in the ADI 1, which is the guidance to examiners, it specifically says that they will look at your part 3 evidence. That doesn't mean to say they have to. It means that you have to have prepared for the potential that they want to look at your evidence. And I'm sure half of them probably won't even ask to see it. But you don't want to be the one candidate who isn't prepared. And certainly if you're going under Drive Heart, the expectation is that you will bring a professionally sorted folder presenting your, particularly your part 3. You don't have to, we used to take the big Bertha with everything in it, but it's more specific now, is the evidence that you've submitted to support your part 3 and your pink needs to be there. And
all your training records.
And your training records, yeah. Whether or not they choose to look at it is entirely up to them. But the ADI 1, which is the guidance to examiners on what they should do, makes it quite specific that they can, if they wish to, examine your records.
It just presents, you know, first impressions and all that. You turn up with a nice looking folder, even if they look at it or not, they know that you've got your training records. You know, if you turn up with your trainer, that is a good shout as well, because they know that your trainer is interested in your performance. So there's absolutely no negatives at all to turn up with your training folder, and if they don't want to look at it, that's up to them.
So the key thing is turn up with a car that looks clean and smart and tidy. You know, turn up with your trainer if you're an external.
If you can get
your trainer to turn up. And you know, have a really good understanding of what the exam is looking for. And I go over this time and time again with externals. It's not so much for DriveHeart because we bang on about it, but a lot of candidates turn up for the Part 3 and standards check without actually knowing how they're going to be marked. So one key piece of research that you all need to do and revisit it is to read the ADI 1 and understand what competency is. If you don't want to read the whole thing, I've done an article which is on the new website. And there's also a copy of this which DriveHeart people can download, or anybody can download it, it's free. So it's basically understand what the examiner has been told by their bosses to look for in an exam. And it gives it hook, line and sinker. So just refresh and get a clear understanding of what the beast looks like. There's an article on the DriveHeart instructor website, which actually goes over that in detail, which is available free. Lorraine, I don't think you were around when we had a dedicated website for
No, but I've got that document. I bought it off you ages ago. I've got that.
Okay, there's some free articles available on the new website. So go and
I will have a look.
DriveHeart-instructortraining.com.
Okay, thank you.
I know you're on the right side because it's all blue. So, you know, hence this is now themed blue. I don't think you've got that one, Lorraine, have you?
I had one that I can't find it. I thought
that one.
Oh, that one, yeah. What's that one?
Yeah, that's the older version, and it's very good. It's a good read, but this is a guide to success.
Okay.
So anyway, but yeah, it doesn't matter. But
Okay.
yeah, so have a look. Check out the new website, everybody, because it
I'll
is.
put the address here.
It is very good. There's lots of links and things like that. And as usual, any feedback welcomely received.
That's the address for anybody that wants to go and have a look. There is some hot tips and articles going on there each week, so it's entirely up to you if you want to keep an eye on it. But I'm hoping to put an article a week on for instructors, and there already are some on at the moment, aren't there?
Yeah. Okay, good. So does anyone have any other areas of concern or that you want clarifying? Or have a discussion around?
I've got a couple of points I can come over.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some stuff as well.
Okay. No. Can anybody tell me what the main reason people fail Part 3s and standards check is? Hands up, and let's see if we can get this right. Go for it, Cass.
Not adapting the plan.
Yep.
Well done.
Anything else? It's a big one.
Is it learning outcomes?
Yes, it is, Rachel. Okay, one of the common phrases, adapting the plan and not getting learning outcomes, are two of the key phrases that come back on feedback. Probably the other side, the other point is not dealing with a safety critical event, but usually it's because they've not adapted. Their style of teaching, therefore, is not meeting what the student needs. Or because of that, they aren't getting what the student needs, therefore they're not achieving learning outcomes. So that little package appears so regularly on both standards check and Part 3 feedback. Well, it does, almost everyone, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, well, the thing is they all dovetail and link to each other, but that links also to setting the correct goals for what the student actually needs, doesn't it?
It does.
So, yeah.
So having some clarity about what the session is about, adapting it if the students' needs change, and making sure that you keep that connection to the goals relevant right through the lesson. These are the key reasons why people come unstuck. And I think the other thing is overall, and I mentioned it before, is quite simply if people aren't engaged with the student. In other words, if you sit back and you're passive and you're not in there and helping and coaching the student and being proactive, if you sit back and you find yourself with long gaps and things like that, then you just can't afford to be passive in the instructor's seat.
I think also, I think sometimes when we say this engagement with the student and the constant, being with them, giving a verbal cuddle, it doesn't necessarily mean you're banging questions. You're not, banging Q&A at them the whole time like a machine gun. But it might just be, I was really pleased to see you did that, or well done for doing that. It's just communicating with them. And another thing that's come up recently is if you've got a student who's lacking in confidence, and a lot of them will on your test because they feel the pressure, as you all know, is if they've done something and they're sort of looking for clarification from you. So, I'm not sure I should have pulled out there. Let's say it's a roundabout. I'm not sure I should have gone there. If you must respond to that. It's no good being silent with it because they need to hear from you. Yes, it was a good decision to go, well done. So you've clarified that was the right thing, because otherwise you've lost that opportunity. Or, okay, no, we'll talk about that in a minute, because if it wasn't the right time to go, maybe you should have stopped them, but not always. But it's something that you can talk about either on the move when you've got a bit more space, or you might have to pull up and unpack it with them. And in fact, I wasn't thinking about today, but Cass, you had quite an interesting one today, didn't you? On a roundabout. Do you want to share with us? With no names?
Yeah, so we was approaching a roundabout and there was a car to our right that hadn't got in the roundabout yet. They were going quite slow. And my pupil said the same thing. And then as soon as we then went to go into the roundabout, this car then sped up. So at that point, it wasn't safe to stop my pupil. Yeah. So
what was good, Cass, what you did is you let him get off the roundabout, and then when we had the long straight road, you started unpacking it with him. Yeah. But I think you got a bit tangled up because you weren't really sure what to say to him. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes it's one of those, that when he entered the roundabout, the car was off at 1 o'clock, wasn't it? If we're coming in at 6. Yep. Now, if you and I would have gone, and then as we went onto the roundabout, as we saw this car suddenly increase his speed, we'd have got our foot down and we'd have been gone. But with the learner, of course, he didn't. He stayed at the same speed. And sometimes it's just down to experience and confidence. Sometimes there isn't a black and white answer. Sometimes it's one of those. You don't always have to have an absolute black and white answer. But what's important is that you have a discussion with the student about it, which is what Cass did. So that was good. But, sometimes you can't say, well, you shouldn't have gone, because then every time he's got someone at 1 o'clock on the roundabout, he's going to be sitting waiting. Well, that's not right either, is it? So it's about having an adult to adult discussion about it and sort of chewing it over together. But it's really important that you give them feedback. So, when they say, I'm not sure I should have gone, if they should have gone, confirm, yes, you should have gone. That was a really good decision. Or no, maybe not. We'll talk about it in a bit. Okay, we'll tag it and we'll talk about it. But do something, say something, don't just ignore them. Because when they're talking and they're saying things like that, they're looking to you for confirmation of what was the right thing to do or not do. So just ignoring them is a really bad thing to do at that point. And that's all about the interaction with the student, isn't it? Communication is one of the key things. And, sometimes an instructor who's lacking in confidence, they can be really quiet, and that doesn't bode well, because you need to be involved with that student. And if they're doing everything right, you can still be involved with them, but it doesn't mean you're giving them instruction. I remember a little while back, I had an instructor, and he failed his part 3 because it wasn't the drive heart one, but he was trying to get his student to drive independently. So because he thought, right, okay, the student is driving independently, therefore I can't give him any instruction. And of course, the safety critical thing started to build in front of them, and he just let it run because he thought, I'm not supposed to say anything because he's supposed to be driving independently. But at that point, guys, what should the instructor have done?
Up the level of instruction and helped.
Yeah, he should have stepped in and helped. So even if he's gone from 0 level of instruction, he might have gone to full instruction at that point. I mean, hopefully, if he's getting ahead enough, then he can start by asking questions like you all do. You know, what's happening on the road ahead? What are you doing? What's your plan? Have you got this? Do you need some help? And if you haven't got time for that, it's straight in with right rearview mirror brake, which you did great again today, Cass. You had a situation with an ambulance, didn't you? It's all been going on for Cass today. And we were tootling along at 60, and suddenly this ambulance is coming towards us on our side of the road because he's overtaken the car that stopped. And Cass had been letting the guy go. He was not having any help at all, was he? And immediately Cass jumped in with right brake, get on your brake. And it was great because that's exactly what you need to do. So that's showing you how you can go from 0 level of instruction to full instruction. And we always hark back to Debbie Plum's situation, don't we?
Yeah.
Where the instructor wasn't doing anything.
Didn't deal with a car colliding towards a bus. So, yeah.
So it's about getting ahead. You know, that's one of the key things, and getting ahead with your instructions so that they've got time to understand what you want them to do. And, you know, if it's a complex junction, give them the instruction and then say, you're happy with that? You know where I want you to go. And so do it all in good time. It's no good giving them late instructions.
I always think it's interesting, and I'll ask Lorraine to do this, is when you look back at how you were teaching when you were going through your part 3,
Yeah.
and how your teaching has evolved now, can you see, well, what would you say the key differences are?
Well, I'd say that I had to really think about the questioning, and I really had to make a conscious effort to congratulate them when they've done things wrong, whereas now I find them questioning. No, when they've done things right, sorry. Now I'm it's more natural, the questioning. It's like, you know, how's the road ahead looking? Well, what would have happened if he'd done this? What would have happened if he'd done that? The what ifs. And they're really, really useful. There's loads of things that I took from my training with you guys that, you know, has evolved into a more confident sort of, I don't have to think about it now. It just sort of rolls out, you know, which I'm pleased about.
And that's why we say there's no script for this, but it's about a good way of communicating with your student, that you evolve your own style. So, because I think some people get hooked up on, I've not said the right words. Well, if you're saying it so it's clear and concise, I don't care how you're saying it, providing you get the message over clearly and concisely. And eventually you develop your own style, and actually if you can get to the point where you feel comfortable in your skin with instruction, that's the point, I think, that things change for people, because if otherwise it becomes really staccato and unnatural and clunky. And I remember the early days, Lorraine, when I was sat in the car a couple of times with you and you were struggling to get your words out.
I still would if I was in the car with you. It's you, Jack.
I love you too.
I don't mean that horribly, but I'm just not good in that sort of, well, what I used to say, the sort of not role-playing situation. I just don't feel comfortable with it at all. I still probably wouldn't to this day, although I feel confident in myself, in my own patter, in my own car, with my own pupils. I'm perfectly happy. But, you know, the thought of you sitting in with me as well would just send me into a flat spin. Even now, I know it would.
You arrange that then.
I'm really looking forward to it.
We did some immersion therapy, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
And I think the thing is that you do get comfortable and you get more natural in your question Q&A, and you get more concise. You learn how to pull it back so that you give yourself more time. And that's what we try to encourage people to do. Get actively engaged, so you're upfront and personal with the lesson, that you're not sitting passively. Massively important, that, because that's what they're expecting to see, isn't it, in 40 minutes, that you can spot things, that you can deal with them, that you can coach and you can encourage. That's key. And then you do, over time, you get more natural with your questioning. You know, an exam is different from a 2-hour lesson. But, you know, you need to demonstrate your skills in a part 3 or a standards check, don't you? Come to the party, as they say, not sit passively or get, you know, tongue-tied. So if you can get yourself into that fluidity, I call it, that naturalness in terms of your questioning before you go to your exam, that's really good, isn't it? That's how I got an A, because I felt comfortable. I was at a place where I actually felt that I got my instruction and my language sorted out. And because I'd observed Sarah for so many hours, I'd had a, you know, almost a role model of how to do it. Which was
I think that was a problem for me, was having because I didn't have any tuition at all. It was all completely new, and I think that was why I struggled with it. Like you say, I took a lot from the in-car sessions with Sarah, listening to her patter. That really helped me as well. And like you say, I then evolve it into how I speak, but it really that helped the most, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, you know, demonstration is really powerful for a lot of, certainly for me. I mean, poor old Sarah had me sat in a car for months before I went to my part 3. nearly divorced at one. But you really do, if you get the opportunity to sit in.
But be careful who you sit in with.
Yeah, careful. Yeah, don't. It's like a book. You know, a bad book is a bad read, isn't it? So don't sit in with somebody who's not a good instructor. But if you can sit in with your trainer while they're teaching to get that demonstration, I think, Cass, you've been doing that, haven't you? And Rachel, you've done that too, haven't you? In the past, it's really important. It's really good experience because you get to see somebody who's A graded teaching. You know, it's a great demonstration.
Rach, did you have a question?
No, it wasn't a question. It was just listening to you talk and taking me back to a little bit different, but it takes back to my daughter when she was choosing university. And I remember she was looking to become a teacher. And this whole thing is about communication and how you find your level of interacting with that student to get what they need. And I remember this lecturer saying and my daughter was with me, it was quite full, and she said, you could have the best qualifications in the world. But if you cannot talk to that child, you're no good to me. Because I want you to be able to, obviously with knowledge, but you have to be able to communicate or it's not for you. I think that's quite brilliant.
Yeah, I think teaching and coaching does demand a good degree of interactivity and good communication skills. That, you know, that doesn't mean to say that there is a particular language you have to use, because I think being natural with somebody and talking to them adult to adult is the most important thing. That you're treating people with respect, that you're valuing their past experience, that you're bringing their past experience of driving and riding into the car, and also getting into their head. And Sarah's really good at this, because actually getting into understand how the student ticks, what motivates them, is really important, isn't it? So Sarah will often talk about sports and horse riding and all sorts of things in a car when I've observed her teaching, to find out what really is sort of what the student, how the student ticks. And one way or another, she's also getting to know how they communicate and trying to overcome those barriers. And this is really important when you're establishing that rapport with your students early on. Because if you just go and think, I'm just going to teach them how to drive, it's a bit flat, and it's not the full picture, is it? Because you're going to be in that car with them probably for 6 months, on and off, aren't you?
Yeah, so a good example of that actually is the other day I was in with a PDI, and the student, it's the same student I mentioned earlier, was quite lacking in confidence. And the student said, oh, I'm like this with everything in life. And I said, well, let's just stop and have a chat about that. So tell me, are you like that with everything in life, or is it just driving? She said, no, it's everything. I said, well, give me an example. She said, oh, well, for example, the other day, and she gave us a really good example of where her lacking confidence created dithering and, you know, extended time wasted faffing around when really it could have been a very simple task. So that was quite interesting, because for me now, as somebody who's training my PDI, that's valuable knowledge. So it's not just the driving that this person is struggling with, it's everyday decisions in life. So it's good to know that. And sometimes you get someone and they're faffing around, and you know, oh, I'm not very quick at doing anything. And so, okay, when you make a cup of tea, do you have a logical method for making a cup of tea, or are you quite random? You know, somebody who makes some mistakes sometimes and another the other. They seem to be a bit random and a bit intermittent. Do you make a cup of tea exactly the same way every day? Oh my goodness, no, it's always different. So now you know that student is random, not only in behind the wheel, but they're random with everything. So your work is really cut out, I'll tell you.
I was going to say, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah. But it's good to know that it sort of gives you a bit more background information, doesn't it? About them.
The net effect is, if you just approach a student as a student that you've got
a cardboard cutout almost,
yeah, then you're not going to get that level of engagement that you absolutely do need. And I'm not talking about getting over familiar in your question and your discussions. There is maintaining a professional boundary, but you do have to build a rapport. You do have to get to know how the student ticks. It will help you to teach them. You know, some students learn a lot better by demonstration. Others require, you know, precise instruction and process. So that kind of discussion about how do they learn best is one that you can't just sort of in a very sterile way ask them, how do you learn? You probably will get a very sterile response if you do that. But if you start talking about their hobbies and have they had much experience driving or riding or, you know, pedal cycling, do they go out with their parents in the car, and then you're developing it into, you know, what's their understanding of driving lessons and what's involved in it, and talking about the syllabus. Eventually you get this picture ebbing in as to how this person operates, isn't it? So yeah, these are really important.
It's a more rounded approach, isn't it? It's a more generic approach where you're actually looking at the student as a person rather than a cardboard cutout who's just sitting behind the wheel. And I think that's important. And I like to go into their hobbies, because if they've got a sporting hobby, it's gold dust, because it's so easy to then relate whatever sport it is. I'm not great if it's ballet. I can't really do that, but most sports I'll be able to link back to using it to help them get a picture in their mind, or whatever, you know.
So horse riding, football, tennis,
anything really,
are all really good echoes of the skills that they need, isn't it, in terms of decision making and stuff like that.
So it might be if they're a horse rider, you know, and they're early on in their junctions, if you came to a really sharp left turn, if you're on your horse, would you gallop, canter, trot, or walk around that corner? Oh, I'd probably walk, because it's very tight. I can't see into the side. Well, there you go. So that's the first gear, creep and crawl, isn't it? And once you get them understanding that, and they can relate it to what they do on Neddy, then you're onto a winner, because they can relate back to something they are interested in and they are probably quite accomplished at.
So we've probably come quite away from the part 3, but it's all about building rapport with your student and communicating in a natural and concise way. And if you've built that rapport before you take a student to your test, it makes it so much easier. Because a lot of people talk about, who should I take to test, what kind of student. Often it's the student that's available, but you have to be able to develop the picture that you're giving of how you're coaching that student during that exam. So it's really important that with all your students you develop that rapport, isn't it?
Yeah, and you say we've come a long way from the part 3 with the horse analogy. But under teaching and learning strategies, were opportunities and examples used to clarify learning outcomes. So even something like that would relate to that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You know, but the other thing I was going to say, guys, is use the environment. Do you all know what I mean by that? I think you all do. Yeah, because you've got so many things out there when you're driving around for an hour or two that will help the student learn. And they're things that you can't necessarily make happen. So if something happens, use it. Because if you don't, you're missing opportunities to get those learning outcomes, Rachel, which is what you mentioned earlier. Yeah, so if you just ignore something that's happening, you've just missed that. And trust me, the examiner would have seen it and thought, oh, you had an opportunity to get some learning from that.
And there is an expectation that you will actively use the environment and issues that are emerging in it by the examiners, isn't there?
Yeah.
So if you're not, then
you're missing
you're missing on learning outcomes that would be easily attainable. So any other questions that you have relating to the exams or teaching generally?
We can talk about anything but football.
Or horses. No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so keep it natural. Be fully engaged. These are the key messages. Be fully engaged with your student and the lesson. And understand the exam, what the criteria is. What are the competencies they're looking for? Knowing the exam and being, having an expectation about what the examiner is looking for is a really good thing that you can do before you put foot in the exam, isn't it?
Yeah, and the other thing, and we've covered it, is respond to your student physically, verbally, listen to the noises, listen to the non-verbal clues that they're giving you. But if they're speaking to you, please respond. Even if it's, I hear what you're saying, we can't talk about it now. Or give them confirmation. It's really important that if they're saying things, you've got to listen.
Okay. And just to round it up, I have put the address of the new website. There are some articles that are going on there, which are free. We're going to put an article on a week, which are, key tips or issues relating to Part 3 or standards checks. So it's free. Make use of it. And remember, if you do read an article like that, keep a log of the time and put it down in your professional development folder, because it is part of your professional development. Okay, if you're a dry party, I can certify that you've read it or whatever. If you're external, like Lorraine, keep a record of what you do for professional development.
Like tonight.
And if you go and you read some of our articles, each one takes usually an hour, probably less than an hour, but it's about half an hour to an hour's read. They're medium length articles. Keep a note of them. It shows that you're keeping yourself fresh. The expectation is that ADIs and PDIs should do at least 7 hours professional development a year. So we'll build that portfolio, because if you do get called to standards check, it's useful that you've actually made a record of what you've been doing to keep yourself fresh.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And as always, anybody who is heading towards a Part 3 or a standards check,
you'd be the first to know.
I was going to say, no.
We run an assessment service, which is basically a 1-hour in-car assessment followed up by a written report for those that who want to know. And you can do this at any time. If you want to know how far away you are from the mark, the assessment service gives you that picture and it gives you a report. The only thing we need from you is your current stats to test against your in-car performance. So the DVSA stats, which if you're not sure how to get those, pop me a line and I'll put the link on for you. That's about it from me.
But the other thing is enjoy your teaching. It's a great job. We don't want to get too bogged down with worries and stresses and training, and exams. You know, it's a lovely job. There's so many jobs that people do that they absolutely hate going to work every day, and we are so lucky because we've got a job that you hopefully look forward to, and you know, it really is good fun, and it's so rewarding to see, you know, the outcomes you get from your students. So, you know, relish it and enjoy it and treasure it, really.
All right. On that note, I think we're going to, unless anybody's got anything else, we shall say adieu, as they say.
Adieu.
Adieu.
Adieu. Is that Spanish?
Adieu.
Adios.
Adios.
Ciao. I don't know.
Thank
So
you
you'll
very
be
much.
posting the next one, which will be in a few weeks or months or whatever. won't it?
Yeah, there will be another drop-in centre. We're probably going to run one a quarter.
Yeah.
But it will be on the website because there is an event under the news section. There is an event where we're going to post the free sessions. So, and as always, if you want to come and talk to us, you can always ring Sarah on the usual phone number 07919 488 360. And on that, I shall say good night and God bless.
Cheerio, folks. Thanks for turning up.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Tickle Rachel.
So the 2 Ronnies.
Thank you for that, Rachel.
Sorry, no, I think that came out a bit wrong.
Oh dear. Oops. It's not gone off, is it? No. What happened then? Hold fire. Let me finish it off. Sorry, it's not gone yet.